What started as a light-hearted segment on The Tonight Show took a turn no one could have predicted. As Robert De Niro sat down across from Jimmy Fallon, laughter quickly gave way to silence, and casual banter erupted into a raw, unscripted takedown of American politics that sent shockwaves through the studio. What pushed the iconic actor to break the mold? Why did Fallon freeze? And what did the audience witness that night that mainstream headlines refused to touch? Make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on every story the media won't show you. The night started like any other on The Tonight Show. The audience was warm, the band was energetic, and Jimmy Fallon greeted Robert De Niro with a casual grin, ready for a relaxed chat. De Niro, the legendary actor known for his intensity both on and off screen, appeared calm, almost disarmingly so. But beneath that calm lurked a storm waiting to break. As Fallon began with light questions about De Niro's latest projects, the conversation seemed routine. Then, without warning, De Niro shifted gears. "You know, Jimmy," he said, voice low but firm, "there's a part of this country that's being ignored, silenced, and frankly, crushed beneath the weight of political gamesmanship." The room stiffened. Was this still a late-night comedy, show, or something else entirely? Why do we keep pretending everything is fine? Why do we accept lies from those who claim to serve us? How long are we going to watch while the system tears apart the very people who built it? His questions hung in the air, loaded and impossible to ignore. Fallon tried to steer the conversation back to safer territory. "That's pretty heavy, Robert. Maybe we can talk about your movie." "No," De Niro interrupted, eyes blazing with conviction. "This isn't about movies. This is about real people losing their homes, their dignity, their futures. And the people in charge? They act like it's all just politics as usual." The crowd was silent now. The cameras zoomed in on Fallon's face, his smile faltering, confusion mingling with unease. De Niro's words pierced through the usual late-night veneer. "Have we forgotten the promises made? The ideals we once believed in? Or is it that we're so numb, so exhausted, that we can't even recognize the decay anymore?" His voice cracked with passion, the anger and frustration of decades spent watching the slow erosion of justice and truth, evident in every syllable. This was not the De Niro who played mobsters or silent warriors. This was a man holding a mirror to the nation's face, daring it to look back. The audience sat frozen, caught between disbelief and the raw power of his message. And Fallon, known for his quick wit and easy charm, found himself outmatched by the sheer intensity of the moment. The show's light-hearted rhythm had shattered, replaced by an uncomfortable truth no one wanted to confront on a stage built for laughter. As De Niro's voice softened just slightly, he leaned in closer and asked, "How do we fix a system so broken it seems beyond repair? Who do we trust when every institution feels rigged? Can change come from the same hands that caused the mess?" Those questions, explosive in their simplicity, left everyone grappling for answers. The night had taken a turn no one expected, but one many desperately needed. The charged silence that followed De Niro's powerful questions stretched uncomfortably long. Jimmy Fallon's usual jovial demeanor was replaced by a cautious reserve, as if he were carefully choosing whether to step back into safe waters or risk the unpredictable tide crashing against the polished studio floor. The audience, too, was caught in this delicate balance, mesmerized, anxious, and uncertain about what was coming next. De Niro's gaze didn't waver. "Look around," he said quietly but firmly. "The divide is real. People are hurting. And politics isn't about policy anymore. It's about survival. And survival is messy." His tone carried the weight of years spent witnessing injustices, a crescendo of frustration finally spilling over. Fallon tried again, this time with more tact. "Robert, do you think the problem is the politicians or the system itself?" De Niro paused, then answered bluntly. "It's both. The system allows the worst to thrive and punishes the honest. We put faith in leaders who feed us promises but deliver nothing but chaos. Do you think those in power care about the working person? About the families struggling to put food on the table? No. They care about power, money, and maintaining control. His words seemed to echo in the room, sparking murmurs in the audience. The late-night format was cracking beneath the pressure of truth. Was this the moment the veneer finally peeled away, exposing the raw nerve of a country divided and disillusioned? Fallon nodded slowly, struggling to keep the tone conversational. But isn't there hope? There have to be people fighting to change things from within, right? De Niro's face tightened. Hope? Maybe. But hope isn't enough. We need action. Real accountability. We need to stop pretending that tweeting or yelling at the television is a substitute for real change. What about the people who show up every day, working jobs nobody sees or appreciates, who get left behind when the politicians move on? What about them? The studio felt tense, the contrast between the typical lighthearted banter and the brutal honesty unfolding palpable. Fallon's usually smooth transitions faltered as the conversation grew more confrontational, more urgent. And then came the moment no one expected. De Niro leaned forward, voice dropping to a near whisper but no less intense. Do you ever wonder why so many voices get silenced? Why the real stories don't make headlines? Why the powerful fear the truth so much? The question lingered, heavy and unrelenting. The audience was no longer just watching a talk show. They were witnessing a reckoning, a confrontation with the reality many had tried to ignore. Fallon's expression was a mixture of shock and contemplation. The gap between entertainer and activist, between safe and provocative, had never felt wider. And yet, there was no turning back. As the conversation deepened, the tension in the studio grew palpable. Robert De Niro's demeanor transformed from passionate frustration to a somber, almost weary determination. He wasn't merely venting, he was issuing a call to arms, a challenge, to the complacency that had settled into the heart of American politics and public discourse. The audience, once entertained by jokes and banter, was now gripping their seats, caught in the gravity of his words. De Niro leaned back slightly but kept his gaze fixed on Fallon, who was struggling to maintain his role as the show's affable host. Jimmy, De Niro said slowly, we live in a country with a history full of courage and sacrifice. But today, it feels like those lessons have been buried under layers of apathy and division. What happened to standing up for what's right? When did it become easier to turn away than to face the truth? The audience was silent, hanging on every word. The familiar faces on the screen suddenly felt like strangers in a land shaken by uncertainty and frustration. De Niro's voice, lowered, filled with a deep sadness. We talk about democracy like it's a guarantee, but democracy isn't a spectator sport. It demands participation, accountability, and sometimes confrontation. Are we willing to do that? Or have we been lulled into believing that our voices don't matter? Fallon's smile was gone, replaced by a solemn nod. He asked quietly, but what can people do? How do you fight a system that feels so entrenched, so broken? De Niro's eyes flashed with a mix of anger and hope. First, by refusing to be silent, by demanding honesty, transparency, and justice, not just from politicians, but from ourselves. Are we paying attention to who is really running the show? Are we questioning the narratives fed to us by the media and the powers that be? Too often, we accept the story that suits us instead of seeking the truth. He paused, and then added, it's uncomfortable, yes, it's exhausting. But isn't it more exhausting to live in a world where corruption is the norm and truth is the casualty? Where people are divided not by ideology, but by misinformation and fear? The camera cut briefly to the audience, faces ranging from disbelief to solemn reflection. The typical late-night crowd was witnessing something rare, a raw, unfiltered, confrontation with uncomfortable realities. De Niro's message was clear. This wasn't about politics as usual. This was about reclaiming a broken system. Look at the voices we never hear, De Niro continued. The marginalized, the struggling, the forgotten. Their stories don't make headlines. Their pain doesn't fit into sound bites. But their lives are the fabric of this nation. When we ignore them, what does that say about us? Fallon, visibly, moved, struggled to find the right words. It sounds like you're saying the real problem isn't just the politicians or policies, it's all of us. De Niro nodded. Exactly. Change begins with each person willing to stand up and demand better. But it's also about holding the powerful accountable. Without accountability, promises are empty. Without action, hope is a hollow word. The moment was electric, a rare blend of vulnerability and fire. De Niro's intensity was a mirror reflecting the frustration and hope many felt, but rarely voiced publicly. As he concluded, he looked directly into the camera and asked, "Are we ready to face ourselves? To admit where we have failed and fight for the country we say we love?" The question hung heavy, an invitation and a challenge. Fallon's usual role was upended, and the audience was left to grapple with their own answers. The conversation had crossed a line, the line between entertainment and truth, between silence and confrontation. De Niro's explosive moment was no longer just an outburst. It was a turning point, a spark igniting a much-needed conversation about the future of American politics and society. The silence that followed Robert De Niro's raw outburst lingered in the studio like a heavy fog refusing to lift. Jimmy Fallon, normally the epitome of late-night charm and effortless wit, was now visibly grappling with the weight of the conversation that had taken a sharp, unexpected turn. The usual light-hearted banter and comedic relief felt almost out of place in a room thick with tension, where every word carried the gravity of real-life struggles and deep-seated frustrations. De Niro's expression softened, revealing a side rarely seen by the public, a man burdened by the magnitude of what he witnessed in the world around him. His voice, now steady but imbued with a quiet intensity, filled the room. "You know, Jimmy, I've played countless roles. Heroes, rebels, men fighting against the odds. But sometimes the real world surpasses anything I've ever portrayed. On screen. The corruption we see now, it's not just fiction. It's embedded in our government, our systems, even in our daily lives." Fallon's eyes flickered with a mix of admiration and solemnity. "It's hard to know what to do, isn't it? When the problem seems so huge and so entrenched, it's easy to feel like nothing we do matters." De Niro nodded slowly. "That feeling? That's the trap. It's exactly what those in power want, to make us feel small, powerless, disconnected. But hope is not just a feeling, Jimmy. It's an act. It's the decision to rise every day and fight for what's right, no matter how many times you get knocked down." He leaned forward, voice dropping as if sharing a secret with the viewers at home. "Hope is in the people who organize protests, who show up at town halls, who challenge their representatives and demand accountability. It's in teachers who refuse to let their classrooms be casualties of budget cuts, nurses working endless hours for patients who depend on them, activists putting their safety on the line to shine a light on injustice." The audience was silent, captivated by the sincerity and urgency in De Niro's words. This wasn't just a celebrity airing grievances. This was a passionate plea from someone who had witnessed history's cycles and was deeply invested in shaping what came next. Fallon cleared his throat, then asked softly, "But what about those who feel stuck, who watch this and feel hopeless, like the system is too broken to fix?" De Niro's eyes were fierce. "That's why we have to keep pushing. Because when people lose hope, the whole structure crumbles. A society that gives up on its citizens is doomed to fall apart. We have to remind each other that the fight for justice, for democracy, is ongoing. It demands resilience, courage, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. He gestured toward the unseen viewers at home. Every voice counts. Every act of bravery matters. Even when it feels like you're shouting into the void, you're not alone. The movement grows one person at a time, one small act of defiance after another. But it requires commitment. It requires us to refuse, to be silenced. Fallon nodded slowly, his smile returning, but more subdued, as he acknowledged the gravity of the moment. Tonight, you've shown us something few get to see. Your real passion for this country and its future. De Niro's gaze fixed on the camera with unwavering intensity. This country has given so much to so many. It deserves better than complacency and silence. The question now is, what will we do? Will we continue to be spectators? Or will we step up and demand change? Will we allow fear and division to win? Or will we stand united, fighting for a future that honors the ideals we claim to hold dear? The applause that erupted was not just for the man on the stage, but for the hope and determination his words inspired. The night had morphed from typical entertainment into a powerful moment of reckoning and inspiration. The conversation wasn't over. It was just beginning. The challenge laid bare before millions watching. To awaken from apathy, to act with courage, and to reclaim the promise of a better America. Fallon's voice, steady yet reflective, closed the segment. Thank you, Robert, for reminding us all that the fight continues, and for showing us the power of speaking truth, no matter the cost. As the cameras faded to commercial, the energy in the studio had shifted irrevocably. The audience, the host and viewers at home were left to ponder the stark truths laid bare, and to ask themselves the same question De Niro had posed. What will you do now? The atmosphere in the studio was charged with an intensity rarely seen on late-night television. What began as a routine interview had blossomed into a powerful moment of reckoning. Robert De Niro sat forward, his usual guarded celebrity facade, replaced by a raw and urgent determination. The weight of his words lingered in the air, as if carrying the hopes and frustrations of millions. You know, De Niro began, voice steady but heavy with meaning. We often hear people say, "This is just how it is," like it's some unchangeable fact. But that's the lie we tell ourselves to avoid responsibility. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is fixed. Our history is proof of that. We have seen revolutions, movements, and moments where ordinary people chose to stand up and rewrite the rules. Jimmy Fallon listened intently, nodding as if absorbing the full magnitude of what De Niro was conveying. It can feel so overwhelming sometimes, though, he said quietly. Like, how can one person's voice make a difference in a world so big and complicated? De Niro's eyes locked onto Fallon's, unwavering. One person's voice is the spark that lights a fire. The smallest act of courage can ripple outwards, touching countless others. It's easy to feel powerless when the problems seem enormous. Corruption, inequality, division. But giving in to that feeling is the very thing that allows those problems to persist. He leaned back briefly, then leaned forward again, intensity sharpening. Look at the people who refuse to be silent. Civil rights activists, whistleblowers, journalists risking everything to tell the truth. Voters who turned up by the millions to demand change. Their power wasn't in numbers alone. It was in their refusal to accept injustice. Fallon's voice softened. But what about the cynics? The ones who have lost faith in politics, in leaders, in the system itself? That cynicism is understandable, De Niro admitted, but it's also dangerous. It breeds apathy and fuels the cycle of decay. The system is broken, yes, but it's not dead. It needs us more than ever. We can't afford to walk away or pretend it's someone else's fight. It is ours. Every single person's. The studio audience was silent, hanging on every word as if each syllable carried a call to arms. De Niro's voice grew more passionate. filled with the energy of someone who had long wrestled with these questions but refused to give in to despair. "We have to be the change we want to see," he said firmly. "That means educating ourselves and others, holding our representatives accountable, participating in our communities. It means confronting uncomfortable truths and rejecting the easy answers that divide us." Fallon reflected aloud. "It sounds exhausting, but maybe that's the price of hope?" "Exactly," De Niro replied. "Hope is not a passive feeling. It's a constant act of defiance, a refusal to accept that things can't be different. And when people come together with that mindset, change becomes inevitable." The moment was electric, filled with the kind of hope that doesn't deny the darkness, but insists on the light anyway. Fallon smiled, visibly moved. "Thank you, Robert, for speaking honestly, and for reminding us all that the fight is far from over." De Niro returned the smile, a quiet strength emanating from him. "The fight never ends, Jimmy, but it's worth every battle, because the alternative is giving up on ourselves and on the future." As the segment drew to a close, the applause rose, not just for De Niro's words, but for the call to action they carried. The cameras slowly pulled back, capturing a moment suspended between despair and determination, a moment that transcended celebrity and became a collective call for awakening. For viewers at home, the question hung in the air. In a time of division and uncertainty, will you rise and engage? Will you take the small, brave steps that build the foundation for a better tomorrow? Or will you turn away, hoping someone else will fix what is broken? Robert De Niro's impassioned plea was clear. Change is not only possible, it is necessary. It begins with each of us choosing to be more than bystanders, to speak up, to act, to believe in the power of people united by hope and resilience. And as the lights dimmed and the show ended, those words echoed louder than ever, a triumphant affirmation of the enduring spirit that refuses to be silenced, no matter how dark the times may seem.